"That's him, officer. The intruder," screamed the HOA president when I returned to my ranch. 3 years away, and this was my welcome? This Karen called the cops on me for entering my own property. This property my family owned for 60 years. I laughed. I actually laughed. Because this woman had no idea what she'd just started. See, I made one phone call that night. Just one. To my wife. And within 48 hours, this HOA president would lose everything. Her power, her money, her freedom. This is the craziest HOA revenge story you'll ever hear. Echo Stories family, comment where you're watching from. Let me paint you a picture of that first day back at the ranch. I'd been teaching history in the city for 3 years, sending money back to help Dad with the medical bills. When he passed and left me the ranch, I thought I was coming home to peace and quiet. Instead, I rolled up to find 3 people standing at my gate, like some kind of unwelcoming committee. Rebecca Thompson stood in the middle, flanked by 2 HOA board members who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. She was holding a clipboard, because of course she was, and wearing this smug expression that immediately made my blood boil. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to keep things civil. That's when she hit me with it. "This property is now part of the Oakwood Estates, HOA. You'll need to present proper identification and state your business." I almost laughed. State my business? On my own land? But I bit my tongue and showed her Dad's will, the deed, everything. Sheriff Gonzalez arrived about 10 minutes later, and I could see the recognition in his eyes. "Danny Matthews?" he said, using my childhood nickname. "Haven't seen you since your dad's funeral. Sorry for your loss." He turned to Rebecca and his tone changed completely. "Ma'am, this man owns this property. It's not part of your HOA jurisdiction." But here's where things got interesting. Rebecca muttered something under her breath that made my skin crawl. Just like his father, always thinking they're above the rules. Well, we'll see about that. I should have paid more attention to that comment. I should have realized this wasn't about HOA regulations at all. Later that evening, as I drove past the HOA office, I noticed the lights were still on. Through the window, I could see Rebecca standing in front of a large board. Even from the street, I could make out the words, "Future Resort Development" at the top, with an artist's rendering of luxury condos and a golf course. She was tracing her finger across the map, and when she got to where my ranch would be, she tapped it 3 times, like marking a target. That night, I texted Sophie about the encounter. She was in DC for some big meeting. She traveled a lot for work, though I never really understood exactly what she did. Something with housing regulations and community development. "Local HOA giving me grief," I typed. "But I've got it handled." Her response came quickly. "You sure? What's the HOA name?" I told her it was Oakwood Estates, and there was a long pause before she replied. "Be careful, Dan. If you need me, just call." But of course I didn't call. Why would I? I was a grown man dealing with some suburban busybody. How hard could it be? I spent the rest of that evening going through Dad's old files, and that's when I found it. A lawsuit from 20 years ago. Rebecca Thompson versus William Matthews, my father. She'd tried to claim 2 acres of our land based on some surveying error, and Dad had won. Not only had he won, but the judge had ordered her to pay his legal fees. Suddenly, her hostility made perfect sense. This wasn't about HOA rules or community standards. This was personal. This was revenge served ice cold, 2 decades in the making. I also noticed something strange that night. Sophie's phone kept buzzing with calls. It was exactly 11 p.m. when it started. Sophie's phone lit up on the nightstand, vibrating insistently. She glanced at the screen, frowned, and hit decline. 30 seconds later, it rang again. Same reaction. By the 3rd call, I asked, "Who keeps calling this late?" She didn't even look at the phone this time, just reached over and turned it face down. Work stuff. Some people don't understand time zones. But I caught a glimpse of the caller ID before she flipped it. All 3 calls showed unknown number. When I asked about it, she just said it was work stuff, nothing important. But looking back, I wonder if those calls were the first warning signs of the storm that was coming. In Dad's files, I also found records of other disputes with the HOA over the years. Apparently, Oakwood Estates had been trying to expand their boundaries for a decade, and our ranch was the prize they couldn't claim. There were offers to buy, threats of eminent domain, even attempts to rezone the area. But Dad had fought them all off. Now it was my turn, and I was determined to honor his legacy. I pulled out a notebook and started documenting everything. Rebecca's threat, the police call, the old lawsuit. If she wanted a fight, I'd give her one. But I'd do it smart, methodical, like Dad taught me. Kill them with kindness first, he used to say. Then kill them with paperwork. The truly bizarre thing? When I went online to research Oakwood Estates HOA, their website kept crashing every time I tried to access the board member page. It was like someone or something didn't want me seeing that information. I mentioned it to Sophie during our goodnight call, and she made this weird sound, almost like a laugh. Technology can be finicky, she said, especially when you're Googling the wrong people. I didn't understand what she meant then, but I would. Oh boy, would I understand soon enough. That night, I went to bed thinking I was prepared for whatever suburban warfare Rebecca Thompson could throw at me. I had documentation, I had the law on my side, and I had the Matthews family's stubbornness. What I didn't have was any idea that I'd just entered a chess game where my opponent had been planning her moves for 20 years, and I definitely didn't know that my wife was about to flip the entire board. But Rebecca didn't know that the name Sophie Matthews she'd just Googled had caused her computer to suddenly shut down. Why would a simple name search crash her system? What do you think happened to Rebecca's computer? Drop your theories in the comments below. The next 3 days were like being carpet bombed with paperwork. I'm not exaggerating. Rebecca sent 15 different violation notices in 72 hours. The grass was allegedly 1 inch too high. The fence was the wrong shade of brown. My truck was parked aggressively. That last one actually made me laugh out loud. How does someone park aggressively? But the fines weren't funny, $7,500 in total. For grass height and fence color, I pulled out the handbook Sophie had given me years ago when her parents dealt with their HOA. Just in case, she'd said. Well, this was definitely the case. I spent hours crafting my response, citing what I thought were the relevant statutes. Section 7.3 clearly stated that homeowners had 30 days to remedy violations. I typed up my rebuttal, feeling pretty proud of myself. I even used legal terms like whereas and heretofore. Dad would have been proud. That's when I made my first real mistake. See, I'd referenced the old HOA handbook from 2005. Oakwood Estates had updated their bylaws in 2020, and Section 7.3 no longer existed. The new reference was 11.1, and it gave homeowners only 72 hours to comply. Rebecca's response came within hours, and I could practically hear her gloating through the email. Mr. Matthews, your clear unfamiliarity with current HOA regulations has resulted in an additional $500 fine for filing improper documentation. Perhaps you should educate yourself before attempting to practice law. That stung, but what happened next turned a sting into a full-blown catastrophe. While I was dealing with the fine situation, I had been digging deeper into Dad's files. That's when I found the smoking gun, or so I thought. The lawsuit between Rebecca and my father wasn't just about land boundaries. Rebecca had been trying to buy our property to develop a resort. She'd partnered with some investment group, promising them she could deliver the whole area for development. When Dad refused to sell, she tried to use a surveying error to claim part of our land. The judge hadn't just ruled against her, he'd called her actions predatory and malicious. She'd lost her real estate license for 6 months and had to pay $30,000 in legal fees. No wonder she hated us. But here's the kicker. I also found a recent flyer in Dad's things. Future resort development, it said, with an artist's rendering of luxury condos where our ranch now stood. The project was dated for next year. Rebecca wasn't just holding a grudge, she was still trying to steal our land. I called Sophie that night, excited about my discovery. Honey, you're not going to believe this. Rebecca tried to steal our land 20 years ago. There was a pause on the other end. What do you mean, steal? I explained about the lawsuit, the resort plans, everything. While I was talking, I heard Sophie's phone buzz. She murmured, sorry, and I heard her decline the call. It happened again, 30 seconds later, then a third time. Sophie, what's going on? I asked. Nothing, she said, but her voice was tighter now. Just, some people found out I'm looking into Oakwood Estates. Word travels fast in my industry. She declined the third call with what sounded like unnecessary force. Sophie's voice changed, got that edge it sometimes did when she was really focused. Daniel, listen to me carefully. Someone who holds a grudge for 20 years and is still pursuing the same goal, that's not just determined. That's dangerous. Please be careful. But I was too fired up to listen. I had evidence. I had proof of her motivations. What I didn't have was any idea how far she'd already gone to destroy me. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. It was my principal. "Daniel, I'm sorry to do this over the phone, but we've received a formal complaint about threatening behavior toward a neighbor. Until this is resolved, we're going to need to suspend your evening and weekend tutoring sessions." My stomach dropped. Those tutoring sessions were 40% of my income, $2,000 a month that I needed to pay the mortgage Dad had taken out for his medical treatments. "This is insane," I protested. "I haven't threatened anyone." But the decision was made. The complaint had come through official HOA channels, complete with a formal letterhead. Rebecca had just cost me nearly half my income with a single phone call. But that wasn't even the worst part. An hour later, my phone pinged with another email. This one was from my own account to the school board. "Effective immediately, I am resigning from all teaching positions to focus on personal matters." I never wrote this. My hands shook as I checked my sent folder. There it was. Sent at 3:47 a.m. when I was dead asleep. Someone had hacked my email. Someone who wanted me not just struggling, but completely unemployed. I've never felt rage like I did in that moment. Not hot anger, but cold, calculating fury. This woman was trying to destroy my life, piece by piece. The really twisted part? While I was on the phone with my principal, 3 more calls came through to Sophie. I could see her phone lighting up on the kitchen counter where she'd left it. All declined. All from numbers I didn't recognize. "More work drama?" I asked when she came back. She looked at the phone like it might bite her. "Something like that." "Did you know Rebecca Thompson used to work at a law firm?" The sudden change of subject should have been a red flag, but I was too focused on my own problems to notice that my wife had just revealed she'd been researching my enemy without me asking. That evening, the first domino fell. The bank sent a letter. Due to my significant reduction in verified income, they were reviewing the terms of my agricultural loan. I had 60 days to demonstrate financial stability or face potential foreclosure proceedings. 60 days. 2 months to save a ranch that had been in my family for 6 decades. I sat at Dad's old desk, head in my hands, trying not to panic. That's when Sophie's handbook fell open to a page I hadn't noticed before. Someone had highlighted a section about HOA overreach and legal remedies. In the margin, in Sophie's handwriting, was a note: "Nuclear option, only if everything else fails." Under it was a phone number with a DC area code. I didn't call it. Not yet. I still thought I could handle this myself. Pride goeth before the fall, and I was about to fall hard. But here's the weird thing. Rebecca's bank account had just been frozen at the exact same time as mine got that letter. Who was pulling the strings when Sophie hadn't even come home yet? Echo Stories wants to know, who do you think is orchestrating things from behind the scenes? Comment now. Have you ever had one of those moments where you realize you're not dealing with a normal person? Where you understand that your opponent isn't playing by any rules you recognize? That moment came for me at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. I woke up to this sound, like someone strangling a cat, but mechanical. I grabbed Dad's old baseball bat and crept outside, my heart hammering against my ribs. The sound was coming from the pump house. Our irrigation system, $50,000 of modern agricultural equipment that Dad had installed just 2 years ago, was screaming its death rattle. I flipped on the lights and nearly threw up. Someone had taken a saw to the main pipes, not just cut them, methodically destroyed them, ensuring maximum damage. The pump itself was full of some kind of expanding foam. The electrical panel had been smashed with what looked like a sledgehammer. But the real horror came with sunrise. 5 acres of strawberries, our premium crop, 2 weeks from harvest, were brown and shriveled, dead, every last plant. The smell hit me first, this chemical stench that burned my nostrils. Someone had poisoned the irrigation water before destroying the system. $120,000 of produce gone overnight, plus the $50,000 system itself, plus the future contracts we'd lose. I fell to my knees right there in the field, surrounded by 3 generations of agricultural success turned to ash. I'm not ashamed to admit I cried. These weren't just plants. This was my grandfather's legacy, my father's life work, my future, all dead because of what? A 20-year-old grudge? I called the sheriff's department, but what evidence did I have? Our security camera had been spray-painted black. The perpetrators had worn gloves, no fingerprints anywhere. Could be vandals, Deputy Morrison suggested, though his eyes said he didn't believe it. Been having trouble with kids from the city coming out here. Right. Kids with knowledge of agricultural systems and access to industrial-grade herbicides. I was so angry I almost accused Frank Henderson, our neighbor to the east. We'd had water rights disputes before, and he'd been acting strange lately. I actually drove to his property line ready for a confrontation. Thank God his wife saw me first and explained Frank had been in the hospital for 3 days with pneumonia. Another minute and I would have made everything worse. The phone call that broke me came at 8 a.m. sharp. Mr. Matthews, this is Tom from Valley Produce Distribution. I'm sorry, but we've received a report from your local HOA about sanitation concerns at your facility. We're going to have to cancel our contract for this season. Just like that, another $80,000 gone. Future income, reputation, everything. What sanitation concerns? I practically screamed into the phone. We've never had a single violation. But Tom just mumbled something about not wanting to get involved in local disputes and hung up. I stood there in my ruined field, phone in hand, finally understanding the full scope of what was happening. This wasn't harassment. This was economic warfare. Rebecca wasn't trying to annoy me into leaving. She was trying to bankrupt me. That's when I called Sophie. Really called her, not just texted. My voice broke when she answered. Sophie, I'm going to lose the ranch. They destroyed everything. The strawberries, the irrigation, all of it. There was silence on her end. Then, how much damage? $120,000 in crop loss, $50,000 in equipment, $80,000 in canceled contracts, and I have 30 days before the bank starts foreclosure. The silence stretched longer this time. Then Sophie's voice came back, different, colder, professional. Do you have any security footage? The main camera was destroyed, but wait. I remembered the old game camera Dad had installed under the eave of the barn. He used it to catch raccoons, but it pointed toward the pump house. I might have something. My hands shook as I retrieved the camera's memory card. The footage was grainy, infrared, but clear enough. 2:37 a.m. Rebecca Thompson is directing operations like a general. Her husband Kevin is doing the actual destruction, but hesitating, looking back at her for confirmation before each cut. And a third figure, a man I didn't recognize, wearing gloves and what looked like professional coveralls. I zoomed in on the footage, trying to get a better look at the third man. That's when I saw it. His gloves had letters embroidered on them. In the grainy infrared light, I could just make out SM in white stitching. My heart skipped a beat. SM? Sophie Matthews? No, that was insane. Why would my wife... I shook my head. It had to be a coincidence. But my hands were trembling as I took a screenshot. He was the one handling the chemicals, moving with practiced efficiency. This wasn't their first rodeo. I sent the video to Sophie immediately. Her response was instant. The man in the video, send me a close-up, now. The urgency in her text made my blood run cold. I sent the screenshot of the man with the SM gloves. The typing indicator appeared and disappeared 3 times before her response came through. Those aren't my gloves, Sophie said, reading my mind even from 1,000 miles away. But I think I know whose they are. Daniel, listen carefully. Don't confront Rebecca. Don't go to the police yet. Don't do anything for 48 hours. Sophie, I can't just... Trust me, please. Have I ever let you down? She hadn't. In 10 years of marriage, Sophie had never steered me wrong. But sitting there in my poisoned field, surrounded by the corpse of my family's dream, trust was hard to come by. 48 hours, I agreed. Then what? Then you'll see why Rebecca Thompson picked the wrong family to mess with. I spent the rest of that day documenting everything. Every dead plant, every cut pipe, every piece of damaged equipment. I mapped out the financial impact down to the penny. $120,000 in immediate crop loss, $50,000 in irrigation infrastructure, $80,000 in contract cancellations, $20,000 in projected income from farmers market sales, nearly $300,000 in total economic damage, not counting the emotional devastation of watching my father's life's work die in a single night. By evening, I'd filled 3 notebooks and taken over 500 photos. If we were going to war, I'd be ready with ammunition. But no amount of documentation could bring back those strawberry plants or restore my faith that justice actually existed in this world. That night, I found myself standing in Dad's old workshop, surrounded by his tools and the smell of sawdust that still lingered 2 years after his death. I picked up his favorite hammer, worn smooth by decades of use, and seriously considered paying Rebecca a visit. Not to hurt her, I'm not that kind of man, but maybe to return the favor to her irrigation system. It would have been so easy, so satisfying. But then I heard Dad's voice in my head. Son, the difference between us and them is we build things up. They can only tear them down. I put the hammer back and went inside to wait for Sophie's 48 hours to pass. Whatever my wife was planning, it had better be good, because right now, violence was looking like a pretty reasonable option. When I zoomed in on the man's face in the video, the camera caught something chilling. Those gloves marked SM, the same initials as my wife. Was this a coincidence, or what do you think SM stands for? Leave your guesses below. The emergency HOA meeting was held in the community center, a building that used to be our town's old barn before Oakwood Estates gobbled it up and gave it a makeover. 50 residents packed into folding chairs, and I could feel their eyes on me as I walked in. Some were sympathetic, some were curious, but most just looked tired. These people had been under Rebecca's thumb for years, and they'd learned it was easier to go along than fight back. I set up my laptop at the front, my hands steady despite the rage boiling in my gut. Before Mrs. Thompson begins, I said, not waiting for permission, I have something everyone needs to see. The projector flickered to life, showing that grainy infrared footage. Rebecca is destroying my irrigation. Kevin followed orders like a beaten dog. The mysterious third man with his SM gloves. The room erupted in whispers. Finally, I thought, finally they'll see what she really is. But Rebecca just sat there, calm as a cucumber, that same smug smile playing on her lips. When the video ended, she actually started slow clapping. Wonderful special effects, Mr. Matthews. Did you make this yourself or hire someone? I particularly enjoyed how you made it look like my husband, who was in bed with me all night, by the way. She turned to the crowd. This is exactly the kind of desperate behavior I've been warning you about. This man is unhinged, dangerous. He's already threatened me, cost several of you property value with his eyesore of a ranch, and now he's creating fake videos to slander upstanding members of our community. That's when he stood up. The third man from the video, minus the SM gloves but wearing the same self-satisfied smirk I'd seen on the infrared footage. If I may, he said, voice smooth as oil, I'm Harrison Black, technology consultant. Mrs. Thompson asked me to analyze this video, and I can state with absolute certainty that it's been digitally manipulated. The artifacts around the edges, the convenient angles, classic deepfake indicators. He pulled out a tablet and started showing technical-looking graphs that meant nothing but impressed the crowd. I've worked in IT for 20 years. This is amateur hour. The tide turned instantly. I could see it in their faces, the doubt, the dismissal. In 30 seconds, Harrison Black had destroyed my only evidence. But Rebecca wasn't done. She stood up, pulling out a folder thick as a phone book. Mr. Matthews, while you've been playing movie director, I've been protecting our community's interests. This is a covenant from 1983, signed by your grandfather when Oakwood Estates was first established. She handed copies to the board members, making sure everyone could see the official-looking seal. It clearly states that any property within the expanded boundary zone can be reclaimed by the HOA if it, quote, negatively impacts the economic or social well-being of the community. Your ranch, with its current state of disrepair and your family's history of violations, clearly qualifies. My throat went dry. This couldn't be real. But the lawyer, their lawyer, because of course Rebecca had brought legal counsel, stood up and confirmed it. The document is legally binding. Mr. Matthews has 30 days to pay $200,000 in accumulated fines and fees, or the property transfers to HOA control. $200,000. They might as well have asked for the moon. I looked around the room, searching for one friendly face, one person who might speak up, but they all looked away. Even Bob Cooper, who'd complained about Rebecca for years, stayed silent. The meeting was a massacre, and I was the only casualty. My phone buzzed. Sophie, watching via the live stream, saw that Kid Jake always ran on social media. I answered without caring who heard. Did you see? Harrison Black, she said, cutting me off. Her voice was ice, pure Arctic ice. 5 years ago, I caught him embezzling from a veterans housing fund. $2.3 million stolen from people who'd served our country. He did 10 years in federal prison. My blood ran cold. Then how is he? Early release? Good behavior? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Daniel, that man swore he'd destroy me when he got out, and now he's found the perfect way. Through you. Sophie? Who are you? The question slipped out before I could stop it. The line went quiet. Then, the person he fears most in this world, and I'm coming home. After the meeting, Rebecca cornered me in the parking lot. Not alone, she had 2 men with her, whom I didn't recognize. You have 30 days, she said, savoring each word. Unless you'd prefer to make this easy. Sign the ranch over now, and I'll make sure you get enough to start fresh somewhere else. Maybe teaching positions are easier to find in other states. The threat wasn't subtle, but something else caught my attention. She pulled out her phone and made a call. I only caught fragments. Yes, she's coming. Implement phase 3. Make sure everything's ready. Then she looked right at me and smiled. Your wife has quite the reputation, Mr. Matthews. Did you know that? Some people even call her the HOA destroyer. But reputations don't mean much when you're playing in my sandbox. I drove home in a daze, my mind reeling. Harrison Black, federal prison, $2.3 million. Sophie, the HOA destroyer. None of it made sense, but all of it felt connected, like puzzle pieces I couldn't quite fit together. When I got home, there was already a car parked outside, a sedan with tinted windows, engine running. I grabbed the bat again. Was I ever going to get to use this thing? And approached carefully. But before I could get close, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Don't photograph. We're protecting you. SM. The same initials as the gloves. But if Sophie was still indeed... I spent that night fortifying the ranch like I was expecting a siege. Moved the valuables inside, backed up all my documentation to 3 different cloud services, and even set up Dad's old hunting cameras around the perimeter. If Rebecca wanted to escalate, I'd be ready. But the really disturbing part came when I tried to research Harrison Black. Every search came back empty. It was like he'd been scrubbed from the internet. The only hit I got was from an archived news article Sophie had sent me, and even that loaded weird, like someone was watching me read it. The article was chilling. Housing administrator catches largest HOA fraud in state history. There was a photo of Sophie at what looked like a press conference, surrounded by FBI agents. She looked younger, but that steel in her eyes was unmistakable. The article mentioned Harrison by name only once, calling him the mastermind behind a multi-state HOA corruption ring. It mentioned shell companies, fake contractors, and millions in stolen funds meant for affordable housing. And at the center of it all, one woman who'd spent 3 years building the case, Sophie Matthews, Director of HOA Oversight and Restructuring, Director national level. My wife wasn't just some housing regulator, she was the housing regulator, the final boss of every corrupt HOA in America. And I'd been keeping this from her because I wanted to handle it myself like some macho idiot. If I'd just called her on day 1, but no use crying over spilled milk or poisoned strawberries. The war was here, and apparently I'd brought a knife to a nuclear holocaust. But when I was photographing the license plate, my phone received a text. Don't photograph, we're protecting you. SM. Was this car a friend or foe? My wife's initials or someone else's? Echo Stories is curious. Is SM Sophie Matthews or someone else? Drop your thoughts below. The flashback hit me like a truck when I was going through Sophie's old work files at 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep. Well, who could with mysterious cars watching your house? So I'd started digging. And there it was, front page of the Washington Post from 5 years ago. Federal investigator saves veteran community from HOA fraud. The picture showed my wife standing next to 200 veterans who'd almost lost their homes. They were calling her a hero, the HOA destroyer, the woman who'd taken down 17 corrupt homeowner associations in 5 years. And I'd told her I could handle Rebecca Thompson by myself. God, I was an idiot. The article mentioned Harrison Black by name, said he'd orchestrated a scheme to steal veteran benefits through fake HOA fees and fabricated violations. Sound familiar? But here's the kicker. He'd threatened Sophie in court, said he'd destroy everything she loved when he got out. The judge gave him an extra year for the threat, but apparently that hadn't cooled his hatred. I was so absorbed in reading that I almost missed the sound of car doors closing outside. Multiple doors. I grabbed Dad's bat, this was becoming a habit, and peeked through the blinds. 2 black SUVs had boxed in the surveillance car. My heart stopped. Was this Rebecca escalating? But then I saw her. Sophie. My 5'4" wife stepped out of the lead SUV like she was stepping onto a battlefield. Even in the dim streetlight, I could see the change in her. This wasn't the woman who'd kissed me goodbye 2 weeks ago. This was someone else. Someone harder. Someone dangerous. She walked straight to the surveillance car and knocked on the window. "Gentlemen," I heard her say, voice carrying in the still night air. "You can go now, or you can explain to the FBI why you're stalking a federal witness." The car peeled out so fast it left rubber on our driveway. Sophie turned toward the house and saw me watching. She smiled, that same warm smile that had captured my heart 10 years ago, but her eyes remained cold, professional. "Hi, honey," she called out. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was murder." Like she hadn't just intimidated 2 grown men into fleeing, like this was normal. I opened the door and she walked in, followed by 4 people I'd never seen before. "Daniel, meet the team. James handles forensic accounting, Maria is our legal specialist, Tommy does IT security, and Andre finds things that people want hidden." They set up in our kitchen like it was a military command center. Laptops everywhere, phones buzzing, printers spitting out documents. Sophie poured herself a coffee. When had she made coffee? And turned to me. 48 hours. "That's what I promised you. We have work to do." "Sophie," I started, but she held up a hand. "I know you have questions. I know you're confused and probably a little scared of me right now, but I need you to trust me for just a little longer. Can you do that?" I nodded. What else could I do? This woman I'd shared a bed with for a decade was suddenly someone I didn't recognize, but she was also my only hope of saving the ranch. "Good. First things first, the email hack. Harrison got into your school account and sent a resignation letter. We're fixing that." Tommy was already typing, fingers flying over his keyboard. "Done. Email recalled. Principal notified of the security breach and, oh, this is interesting." He turned his laptop towards Sophie. "Harrison's been a busy boy. 3 other HOAs, same pattern. Create violations, destroy property, force sales to shell companies." Maria looked up from her stack of papers. "Rebecca and Harrison have 7. No, wait, 3 shell companies. They've been buying up land around here for 2 years. Small parcels, nothing attention-grabbing. But together?" She pulled up a map on her tablet. "They own 80% of the surrounding area. Your ranch is the missing piece. With it, they can sell to offshore developers for," she typed quickly, $50 million. $50 million. No wonder Rebecca had held a grudge for 20 years. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about money. Big money, life-changing money, the kind of money people kill for. "There's more," Andre said, and something in his tone made everyone stop. 2 other HOAs in neighboring counties. Same playbook, but the homeowners, they didn't fight back. They sold. But check this out. He pulled up financial records. Every sale, the money went to the same offshore account. And that account? It's linked to a development company that's been flagged by the FBI for," he paused, looking at Sophie. "For what?" I demanded. Sophie sighed. "International money laundering. The FBI's been building a case for 2 years. Your little HOA dispute just became a federal investigation. So call them," I said. "Get them here now." But Sophie shook her head. "It doesn't work like that. We need concrete evidence linking Rebecca and Harrison to the larger conspiracy. Right now, all we have is circumstantial." That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but Sophie nodded at me to pick up. "Mr. Matthews?" The voice was nervous, scared. "This is Kevin Thompson, Rebecca's husband. I need to talk to you, alone. It's about your wife. I know something about her that you need to know. Don't tell her about this call, please. My life depends on it." The line went dead. Before I could process what just happened, another text came through from the same number. "Tomorrow, noon, the old Miller barn. Come alone, or you'll never know the truth about why Sophie really married you." My blood went cold. Why did she marry me? What the hell did that mean? I glanced at Sophie, who was deep in conversation with James about shell companies. She looked up and smiled at me. That same warm smile from our wedding day. But Kevin's words echoed in my head. Everyone in the kitchen was staring at me. Sophie's expression hadn't changed, but something flickered in her eyes. "Let me guess," she said quietly. "Kevin wants to meet. Says he has information about me." I nodded, stunned. How had she known? "It's a trap," Andre said immediately. "Classic bait and switch." But Sophie was thinking. That brilliant mind of hers was working through possibilities. Maybe Kevin's finally had enough. "James, pull up everything on Kevin Thompson." financial records, employment history, and medical records if you can get them. Sophie, I said, what could he possibly know about you that— 5 years ago, she interrupted, Harrison had a partner. Someone on the inside fed him information about our investigations. We never caught them. She looked me straight in the eye. Their partner knew things about me, personal things, things that could destroy everything I've built. The kitchen went silent. Even the laptop seemed to stop humming. What kind of things? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Sophie's smile was sad. The kind of things that would make you wonder if you ever really knew me at all. She turned away, but not before I saw her hands tremble slightly. In 10 years of marriage, I'd only seen Sophie truly rattled twice, when her mother died and now. Whatever Kevin thinks he knows, she said quietly, remember that Harrison is a master manipulator. He's probably fed Kevin lies to break us apart. That's what he does, finds your strongest bond and turns it into your greatest weakness. But right then, Kevin sent another message to Daniel. I know your wife's secret. Meet me alone. Don't tell Sophie. Why did Kevin know about Sophie? And what secret could be worth risking his life? Would you meet Kevin if you were Daniel? Comment below. 2 days later, the Oakwood Estates Community Center was packed with over 100 residents. Rebecca had pulled out all the stops for this emergency meeting to address the Matthews situation. She'd even hired a professional setup crew, projection screens, microphones, the works. I sat in the front row, Sophie beside me, both of us wearing our best poker faces. The rest of the team was scattered throughout the crowd, looking like concerned residents. Rebecca took the stage like a Roman emperor entering the Colosseum. She was dressed in a power suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage, and her smile was so bright it could have powered a small city. Friends, neighbors, fellow homeowners, she began, voice dripping with false concern. We're here today to discuss a cancer in our community, a blight that threatens everything we've built together. She clicked a remote and my face appeared on the screen behind her. It was a terrible photo, probably from my driver's license, blown up to make me look like a criminal. Daniel Matthews, she continued, inherited a property that has become an eyesore, a danger and a financial drain on our community. His negligence has already cost us credibility with developers who could transform Oakwood Estates into the premier destination we all deserve. The crowd murmured, some nodding along. These people had been promised their property values would triple once the resort development began. All they had to do was get rid of one stubborn rancher. But today, Rebecca said, building to her crescendo, we end this. Mr. Matthews has 30 days to vacate or we'll enforce the covenant his own grandfather signed. The future of Oakwood Estates begins now. The crowd erupted in applause. I felt Sophie tense beside me, but she didn't move. Not yet. We'd agreed. Let Rebecca think she'd won. Let her get comfortable. Then strike. I stood up slowly, feeling every eye in the room on me. May I asked, gesturing to the microphone. Rebecca's smile faltered for just a second. She hadn't expected me to fight back publicly, but she recovered quickly, stepping aside with a magnanimous gesture. Of course, everyone deserves their say, even if it won't change anything. I connected my laptop to their projection system. Tommy had assured me it would work, and pulled up the first video. You're right, Mrs. Thompson. Everyone deserves their say, so let's hear what you had to say at 2:37 a.m. 3 nights ago. The infrared footage filled the screen. Rebecca is directing the destruction. Kevin is sawing pipes. Harrison is handling chemicals. The room went dead silent. Deep fake! Harrison shot up from his seat in the back. I've already proven this is fabricated. I smiled, actually smiled, because this was the moment we'd planned for. You're right, Mr. Black. That video could be fake. So how about this one? I clicked again. New footage, crystal clear from a different angle. The neighbor's doorbell camera that Andre had discovered. Then another from the traffic camera at the intersection Tommy had accessed. 2 different angles, all showing the same thing. Rebecca Thompson orchestrating the destruction of my family's livelihood. Still think it's fake? I asked. The crowd was getting restless now, voices rising. Some people were standing, pointing, and demanding explanations. Rebecca grabbed the microphone. This is entrapment. Illegally obtained? It doesn't matter what those videos show. They're not admissible in... You're right, a new voice said from the back of the room. Sophie stood up and I swear the temperature dropped 10 degrees. She walked down the aisle like she owned the place, each step measured, controlled. Video evidence can be tricky, so let's talk about something more concrete. like the 3 shell companies you and Mr. Black established: Sunshine Holdings, Meadow Development, and Paradise Ventures. Ring any bells? Rebecca's face went white. Harrison started moving toward the exit, but Andre stepped in front of him. Not threatening, just there. I don't know what you're talking about, Rebecca stammered, but Sophie was already at the laptop pulling up financial records. Really? Because your signature is on all the incorporation documents, along with the bank records showing $8.5 million in HOA funds transferred to these companies over the past 2 years. The room exploded. People were shouting, demanding answers. Someone yelled about their missing assessment fees, another about the special levy that was supposed to fix the pool but never did. Sophie held up a hand, and surprisingly, they quieted. She had that effect on people. My name is Sophie Matthews, she said, voice carrying without the microphone. I'm the director of HOA Oversight and Restructuring for the federal government. And Rebecca Thompson, Harrison Black, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and racketeering. The doors burst open. FBI agents flooded in, moving with practiced efficiency. Harrison tried to run, but didn't make it 3 steps. Rebecca stood frozen at the podium, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. But the best part, the absolute best part, was when Kevin stood up. Poor, beaten down Kevin, who'd been Rebecca's lapdog for 20 years. Kevin, sit down, Rebecca screamed, her face purple with rage. But Kevin was already pulling out his phone with shaking hands. 2 years, he said, his voice growing stronger. 2 years of recordings, every crime, every plan. He pressed play, and Rebecca's voice filled the room. I don't care if those strawberries are organic gold. Burn them all. Make it look like a disease. And if Daniel Matthews gets in the way, well, accidents happen on farms. The room gasped. Kevin scrolled to another recording. Harrison says 50 million if we get the ranch. Do whatever it takes. Rebecca's composure finally shattered. Kevin, you can't, you pathetic little... But the FBI agents were already reading her rights, drowning out her screams. Sophie turned to the crowd, and her voice was calm, professional. 3 HOAs have been systemically defrauded. Over 200 families were affected. Every penny will be returned within 60 days. If you've been wrongfully fined or assessed by this HOA in the past 5 years, we'll be conducting full audits. Justice may have been delayed, but it will not be denied. I watched through the window as they put Harrison in the FBI van. He caught my eye, and his smile widened. His lips moved deliberately, making sure I could read them. Phase 2. Then he actually winked. The agent slammed the door, but I could still see Harrison through the rear window, laughing. Not the laugh of a defeated man, the laugh of someone who knew something we didn't. What the hell was Phase 2? Sophie saw it too, her eyes narrowing, but before she could react, Harrison was gone, shoved into a waiting FBI van. The meeting dissolved into chaos after that. People were crowding around Sophie with questions, complaints, and tears of relief. Through it all, she was patient, professional, taking names and promising follow-ups. But I saw the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes kept flicking to where Harrison had been. Phase 2. What had we missed? It wasn't until later, in the quiet of our kitchen, that Sophie finally let her guard down. He's planning something, she said, staring at the scattered documents. Harrison always has a backup plan. Always. So what do we do? I asked. She looked at me, and for the first time since she'd arrived, I saw fear in her eyes. We wait, and we watch, because whatever Phase 2 is, it's going to be bad. She was right, but neither of us could have imagined just how bad it would be, or how personal. Harrison Black had one more card to play, and it would nearly destroy everything we'd fought for. But that's a story for another day. Right now, we have a victory to savor. Rebecca Thompson was in custody, the HOA was dissolved, and my family's ranch was safe, or so we thought. But as everyone celebrated, security footage captured something terrifying. Harrison was still smiling in the police car. His lips formed 2 words. Phase 2. What was the second phase of the plan? Echo Stories will reveal it in the final chapter. But first, what do you think Harrison is still hiding? 6 months later, I stood in my strawberry fields, watching new plants push through the soil. They weren't the heritage varieties my grandfather had planted. Those bloodlines died with Rebecca's poison, but they were mine, ours. Sophie and I had planted every one by hand, along with a crew of veterans from her old cases who'd volunteered to help. The irrigation system was state-of-the-art now, paid for by the settlement. Turns out destroying someone's agricultural infrastructure in a conspiracy to commit federal fraud carries hefty penalties. Who knew? The morning news droned from the radio in the greenhouse. Rebecca Thompson sentenced to 18 years for racketeering and fraud. Harrison Black received 27 years for violating federal probation and conspiracy. In a surprising turn, Kevin Thompson received only 3 years in exchange for his cooperation, with the judge noting his extensive recordings were instrumental in unraveling what prosecutors called one of the most extensive HOA fraud schemes in American history. I turned the radio off. I'd heard enough about Rebecca and Harrison to last a lifetime. The real news was standing in my driveway. Kevin Thompson himself, out on bail, holding a box of strawberry plants. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," he said, not meeting my eyes, "but I want to help rebuild what she destroyed, what I helped destroy. These are heritage plants from the agricultural college. They're descendants of your grandfather's original varieties." I thought, maybe I looked at this broken man who'd spent 20 years under Rebecca's thumb, who'd finally found the courage to stand up when it mattered most. "Everyone deserves a second chance," I said, taking the box. "Grab some gloves. We've got planting to do." The truth about Harrison's Phase 2 had come out during the FBI investigation. He'd planned to escape during transport, had people ready to break him out. The Phase 2 he'd mouthed wasn't a threat, it was a promise to his accomplices that the plan was still on. But Kevin's recordings included conversations about the escape plan. The FBI was waiting. Harrison's brilliant Phase 2 ended with 10 additional years added to his sentence and his entire network in custody. As for Rebecca, she'd tried everything, claimed entrapment, said I'd seduced her husband into betraying her, even accused Sophie of planting evidence. But when you steal $8.5 million and document every penny, there's not much room for reasonable doubt. The last I heard, she was working in the prison garden, trying to grow vegetables. The other inmates said she killed every plant she touched. Sophie and I converted the old HOA office into something better, the Matthews Legal Aid Center. We'd helped over 200 families recover funds from corrupt HOAs, with Sophie training a new generation of lawyers to spot the signs of HOA fraud. The sign out front read, "Protecting homeowners from predatory associations." But my favorite part was smaller, a plaque by the door, "In memory of William Matthews, who never backed down from a fight." Dad would have loved it. Sophie came up beside me as I surveyed our fields. "Penny for your thoughts?" "Just thinking about Phase 2, I said. "How Harrison was so confident, even at the end." She laughed. "Confidence and competence aren't the same thing. He forgot that." "Like I did when I tried to handle Rebecca myself?" She squeezed my hand. "You learned. That's what matters." Looking back now, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd just called Sophie on day one. Would Rebecca and Harrison have been caught sooner? Would my strawberries have survived? But then I remember something Dad used to say, "Son, it's not about avoiding every storm. It's about learning to dance in the rain." We danced all right, danced through HOA violations and courtroom dramas, and we'd come out the other side stronger. The ranch was saved, the criminals were in prison, and Sophie, well, I'd learned my wife was basically a superhero. Not bad for a history teacher who thought he could handle everything himself. "Hey," Sophie said, pointing toward the road. A car had pulled up, and a young couple was getting out, looking nervous. "Bet you anything they're here about HOA trouble." I smiled. "Bet you anything you're right." We walked toward them together, ready to help the next family stand up to corruption. Because that's what we do now. We fight bullies, expose fraud, and protect people's homes. And we're damn good at it. Rebecca Thompson thought she could steal my family's legacy. Instead, she gave us a new purpose. Funny how karma works sometimes. Almost like the universe has a sense of humor. Or maybe it just likes a good comeback story. Either way, we were living proof that sometimes when you think you've lost everything, you're actually just getting started. And if you're dealing with a corrupt HOA, well, now you know who to call. Just maybe check if your spouse has any hidden superpowers first. It could save you some trouble.